Today's intention is love, as you can see from my shirt. Love yourself.
Hey, it's Bobby. Welcome to Student of Intention, where we help you enjoy the pursuit of purpose. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go.
Hello, friends. Good morning. Can't say that often here in the Creative Palace. We're usually here in the afternoons, but today's guest is coming in from the East Coast, so we made a little space for her here in the morning. Welcome to Student of Intention. I'm Bobby Dysart, your host, here in the little corner of the internet where we spark, strengthen, and support self-discovery. Before I introduce Annie Lieb, who's today's guest, as is customary, I want to share a quick little story. I actually posted about this on LinkedIn just this morning. I discovered this thought rereading the book The Artist's Journey by Steven Pressfield. I think it's maybe my fifth time reading it. I just love Steven and all the work that he does. But there's this line in this book that got me thinking about the importance of self-discovery. I actually went as far as to say self-discovery can potentially save the world. Too dramatic? Maybe not. From Steven's book, it says, the artist is a force for unity. Her role is to bring together upon the common ground of the imagination the disparate and often warring factions of the mortal psyche in the human race. Whoosh. I think we've all experienced, warring factions of the human race from time to time. We can go about our days sensing political, social, economic, and racial tension that sort of drapes over us like a weighted cloak. And I think Steve and I's take is self-discovery lifts that cloak. When you gain an understanding of your abilities, your feelings, and your character, those around you do as well. We all start to see each other, hear each other, feel each other, and love one another. Your clarity prompts their clarity, which becomes our clarity. We come together upon the common ground of the imagination. So I sort of reason all of our creative pursuits, anything that we get out in the world that we sort of toil at, it could be as seemingly mundane as sales calls, as digital as marketing campaigns, of course, creative works like books, blogs, newsletters, side hustles, startups, whatever it is. The more we pursue these arts, the more we reveal our artists, our true selves, for the world to see, the more connected we can be. And when we get connected, when we find ourselves, I think collectively we find unity. So throw that thought around for a little bit today when you're off doing your things and you're off figuring out what you want to produce for the world to reveal yourself as a way to enhance your self-discovery. Realize you might just be saving the world. And a woman who knows plenty about doing her part to save the world, to prompt self-discovery, is my guest today, Annie Lieb. Annie is a mom, guide, entrepreneur, an empathic warrior put on earth to model the way toward personal freedom, healing, and fulfillment. She leads a team of intuitive coaches out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And she's kind enough to stop by Student of Intention today and squeeze us in before one of her many live shows that she often does. And she'll share a few stories, some wisdom, and maybe a couple of laughs. Annie, welcome to Student of Intention.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. And I'm very happy I got to set the intention of love. It was my post this morning. I'm filled with this. Love is overflowing in me today. So I appreciate you having me.
You got it. And love, man, that's the word, isn't it?
It is. To me, it's everything. It's everything.
I think so.
It does always win in my eyes. It's in every cell of my being and every fiber that makes me me. I'm here to love, to give love, to show love, to heal with love. So it's a perfect, just aligned with everything you were talking about before, with connection and self-discovery and awareness and all of those things. We're so keyed in.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I want to kind of pull that thread a little bit with you as a person who's really thrown herself into working on yourself and helping others work on themselves. I talked about it a little bit at the top of the show that, this work sort of breeds love. It sort of brings it out. When we bring it out of ourselves through our own work, we bring it out of others, right? Connection can happen. We can sort of have more love as opposed to some of those other pesky emotions. Why do you think self-discovery is important? Do you agree with that, or is there some other things you want to share with regard to the work you do?
So do you want me to tell a little bit about my story, and that'll sort of segue into, or are we saving that?
Because I like to dive into the story later, but right now.
Okay, we can dive into the story later. So because it would explain some of this, but I think that love is almost synonymous with healing. So we are all on this healing journey. Some of us are more active about it and more proactive about it and centered about it than others, but we're all healing. Not all of us are evolving, but the people that I try to surround myself with and the people that I heal on a daily basis are trying to evolve and be the best versions of themselves. If I had not gone on this journey of self-discovery in the way that I'll tell you later in the show, then I would not be able to do what I do, which is run a business, a successful coaching business, where we have created a framework to help people go on the path from their beginning through their healing or their journey to personal freedom, fulfillment, and wholeness. So that's what I think self-discovery does for you. That's how important it is. It is of utmost importance to look at, to examine, to admire about yourself, to admire about others, and to emulate in others, of how to really look inside yourself and become the best version of you. That's the path that I want to help people on.
Well, 100%. And it's one of those things that seems sort of obvious, but also perplexing at the same time, right? I think we can all get behind the best version of yourself. Sounds pretty dope, right? That sounds pretty cool. At the same time, it's well, I'm going through life. I'm maybe not the best version of myself. That's okay, right? Why is it important? And then further, what sort of prompts this need? And this is just, I'm genuinely selfish because I'm still figuring this out myself. I'm why the heck is this stuff so important to me right now? And if you got to tell your story, tell your story.
So it's interesting. I discovered this with a client, and that's what I'm healing, as we all are. And as I heal. So as I heal them, I heal. Yep. And we heal each other. What I uncovered the other day was sort of an epiphany, where it's we're on this road, right? And we're all going toward the same place. Mm-hmm. But are we slowly dying toward the same place, or are we living toward the same place? Mm. That's the difference in people that are self-aware, people that are evolving, people that are growing and healing. You're living each day. Mm-hmm. We're all ultimately going to die, okay? But are we dying through life, or are we living through life?
Are we dying through life? Or are we living through life, right? Ain't that the thing? You actually just triggered this weird thought I had the other day. I may embarrass myself because I haven't thought through this, but for some reason that reminds me of breath. That reminds me of breathing, right? This involuntary / voluntary thing we got going on, right? I agree with you. We're sort of all marching towards the same destination. Some of us are maybe just pulling others along with us, maybe having a little bit more fun, maybe, going there a little bit more, excited, for lack of a better word, versus some of us are sort of just, getting dragged there, to continue metaphor. Again, same thing with breath, right? You can take these unintentional, fast, choppy, sort of hesitant, scared, frightened breaths, or you can take these deep, intentional, slow, fulfilling breaths.
Mm-hmm. And that is why my business partner and I created the breath framework, to take you on an intentional journey through healing. So breath to us is an acronym. So it goes perfectly with what you're saying. I will tell the part of my story of where breath came from, but breath stands for B is for begin, R is reclaim your power, E is excavate your core values, A is allow, not control, T is through, not around, and H is for healing. So that really mirrors, as we discovered this, our journeys from where we really began with all of our struggles, trials, tribulations, through the path, all the way going through to healing. Mm-hmm. And that brought us to a place of our soul center. We look at it like, Bobby, people are mind-centered, they're heart-centered, or they're soul-centered. And the place that I think is where you ultimately want to be when you're evolving and evolved is your soul center. That's a place where you're aligned with your purpose, aligned with your core values, you're whole. You are just live a passion-driven, purposeful life. Mm-hmm. And you're in a place of personal freedom and fulfillment. That is what soul-centered living is. Now, there's nothing wrong with heart-centered living. Most people hover around the heart-centered place. Some people in the ego and the mind-centered place, right? But like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that getting to a soul-centered place is where I am now. And I have to tell you, it's a whole other world to be in this wholeness and this fulfilled. I've never been so fulfilled. And it doesn't mean I have everything I want. It doesn't mean I've reached my goals. It doesn't mean that there aren't trials and tribulations every day. I mean, I run a business. I'm a CEO. Like there's problems. We're now a team of 17. There's always going to be something, right? So it's like, that's not the point. The point is to be in this soul-centered whole place where you're free to breathe because of the breath framework and the journey of healing.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. I was actually checking out your interview with Kelly Bryant.
Uh-huh. Love Kelly. She's my COO.
Lovely. Lovely. And I think that was a live interview as well. Mm-hmm. And about maybe halfway through, you brought up the B word, begin. Begin where you are. And you were actually diving in a little bit to your story, or at least a piece of your story. You were talking about getting your MBA, and after getting out of that MBA, wanting to go get a big corporate job, and then deciding, no, that's not maybe right. And you actually used a really interesting phrase. You used a couple interesting phrases. One, you said you turned the lens around on yourself in 2020, and you talked about pain and the arduous journey you were going through. Let's talk a little bit about the framework within through that filter and expand on you and Kelly's conversation.
So my beginning, when I start my story, there's a lot more before this, but when I start my story, it's probably in 2014 when I was at my lowest low. It was the depths of my despair. I broke up with my husband, I separated my kids. It was a very bad time. And I lost everything, almost all my friends, my family didn't know what to do with me. I was just in a really, really bad place. And I got myself together somehow, putting my life back together brick by brick. In 2015, as I was signing my divorce papers in an auto body shop, because that's where the notary was. And it had to be in front of a notary. There's a poem. There's a poem on the wall. That's where I'm signing my divorce papers. Like, what? And I'm stopping. And like, I look over and I see a Ralph Waldo Emerson poem. And it says something about breathing. And I'm a Jewish girl from Philly. We don't get tattoos. Okay. I'm even whispering because my dad's right outside the office. So, I don't know if he knows about this one, but
I got a couple.
So I turn around. Well, now I have this, but I turn on my heel. I write on a napkin, breath in my writing. And I go to the tattoo place on South Street in Philadelphia, which is where many people go. And they put it on my hip. So it's in my writing on my hip. and it was mine. And the reason that I say that is because I remember it's hidden. I didn't want anyone to see it. It was just for me, but I knew that you could strip me of everything, but you couldn't take that. That was mine. So if that was the last thing I had, then I was going to be okay. I always had that. It was like self. Breath is like self to me. It was like I had myself. No one could leave. You couldn't leave me. I couldn't leave myself. It was just me. So from there, I got into a serious relationship, which we ended up getting engaged. That didn't work out, but got my executive MBA, came out during COVID, and COVID was like, you're so not getting a big corporate job that you just spent $125,000 to get the degree for.
And that's really what you went into it for. Like you had the idea.
I was in pharmaceutical sales for years. That was my career. And I went in it to get the MBA and get, manager level and do all those corporate things. And after my EMBA program, which was the most transformative time of my life, at 40, I went back to school to get this. I learned so much about myself, who I was. And it was much more about than taking data analysis or economics. It was like, Annie, who you are, this is what I was told. You're the glue. You're the therapist. You're the coach. You're the one that keeps everybody together. I had many people say to me, we couldn't have done this without you. And I was like, mind blown. And I'm like, this is my calling. I don't want to do pharmaceutical sales. And that's fine for people that want to, but I don't want to. That's not fulfilling to me. So I started this journey. I met Mike Panorano, who's my chief strategy officer and my business partner. And we both were going through our own struggles. And he would always be like, Annie, these jobs are not for you. Stop interviewing. And I was like, I couldn't throw myself into it. I just couldn't go all the way. I'm like, I need a 401k. I need a salary. And, I have my mentor, my dad in my ear, who's like, right, that's great that you're coaching, but where's your real job? So I'm like, okay. So April of this year rolls around. So we create the breath framework. I start coaching some people. April of this year rolls around, and I go to visit my dad and stepmom in Florida. And I brought a business plan and I sat down with him, and it was the first time that I really leaned in, and I was like, this is what I want to do as my life. This is my life purpose. And he bought into it and was like, I support you. And that's all I needed to hear. I support you. So the end of my money, the end of my bank account, I started this company. And now we have gotten enough clients, and we signed on a big corporate client, and I was able to hire many people. We have 17 right now, which we're still growing, and we're able to coach people on this breath framework that we created. And again, it mirrors our journeys from the beginning to a place of healing and fulfillment and purpose and wholeness and personal freedom. And it's just that I actually get to get up every day and do this is mind-blowing.
I bet. Wow. I mean, great story and congrats. That's just, you just covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time, and can't possibly do the challenges justice, the perseverance justice. We don't have enough time, I don't think. But just I feel you. I hear you going through that divorce, signing the papers on at an auto body store, getting the tattoo, and you're definitely an accomplished woman at that point. You've already graduated from Boston U. You're in pharmaceutical sales, which pharmaceutical sales, in its heyday, is
it's a great job.
It was the sales job. Yeah. When I was coming out of school, I was like, man, that's what I want to do. I want to go sell drugs.
Yeah.
And then to want to go get the MBA and, to go just heighten that career path. And then to be able to say, no, that's not it. Actually, I was maybe a little mistaken, or at least this other light shines brighter. That's crazy. And I guess go back to that space. What were the first sort of intentions, or the awareness that was telling you, all right, I got to go this way. This is where I want to.
I struggled, Bobby, with it. This was a big time between November, December of 2020 through April when I went and saw my dad. That was a big struggle time for me. And now we're only in August. So that's how quickly things have happened.
We're still in our infancy here.
Right?
We're still babies.
And so during that time, I struggled so much with like interviewing for jobs and having in my head this, I'm a single mom, this is what I have to do. And having in my head that mentality of, this is why you went back to school. This is the whole point. You're going to go get this big job and make this amount of money and pay off your loans. And then everything will be by your house and all these things, right? And then I realized that life is about what your passion-driven purpose is. And I figured out somehow a way with a lot of grit and a lot of, like you said, perseverance and a lot of determination and diligence. I work my ass off to get to a place where I can make a great living and do what I love. So I didn't trade off like, well, I'm going to go like try to be an artist, right? Like I just decided to make this business into something big, and meeting Mike was game changer for me. And the two of us we work really well together, and we created this thing, and it just snowballed into this other thing. And now it's continuing to grow. And it's like the people on my team are I can't believe how quickly there's another part of the story. So one time Mike and I were talking on the phone, we were doing something for work, and he said, Emis. And I said, what did you just say? And he said the word Emis. I said, how do you know that word? Because that's a Yiddish word that means truth. E-M-E-S. It's Yiddish. It means truth. And people don't know that word. Like that's a pretty obscure word.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get another tattoo, but I'm going to get it where people can see it. So I went and got this on my wrist.
Here we go.
That was in February. And that says Emis. And that was me stepping into my truth. And right before I went to see my dad, and I was like, this is my calling. I can't go work in consulting for pharmaceutical companies. That's not who I am. This is who I am. And I'm going to make this work. And then you just made a podcast, and I got really engaged, high engagement on LinkedIn. And, I'm there every day. I engage, I do what spreading my message is as important as getting a paycheck to me. This is what I'm called to do. So luckily, and with a lot of hard work, I'm able to do both, where I can make this into a real thing. And I would never think of going back to a corporate job at this point. I mean, it's like, once you're the CEO, you're the boss. Like, I'm not going to take orders from anybody else. So it's been it's been a roller coaster, but like a really awesome one.
100% in. Like, I mean, not just the CEO part, like that piece that you just said, spreading my message is, as important than getting a paycheck. And I think you actually balance those two things really well, the commercial side and necessity of a business with the sort of passion and purpose of the work, right? Which I think is tough to do. At least I have a challenge with that, right? I spent 15 years selling technology and building sales teams at like early stage software companies. And I too am in my infancy with regards to, Student of Intention was started December 31st of last year. I started writing my book September of last year about living with intention. And so I've sort of been nerding out on this idea of living with intention and self-discovery for just under a year. And I definitely still I think the thing that, well, here I have a challenge and then I have a question. So the challenge is like, okay, how do I mix these worlds? Because for the last year, I've been sort of saying they're both separate. Like I got my, hungry, results driven, sharp, tenacious executive guy. He's over here. Mm-hmm. And then, living with intention, self-discovery, artist guy, he's over here. It's not until recently I'm like, okay, let's bring these two guys together. So that's sort of a challenge for me. And then at the same time, like, going back to what you said, several minutes ago about just sort of knowing your soul-centered self, like, and knowing that it's not really about money. It's not about success. Like, there's something to that I can't quite verbalize, even with my wife. Like, she looks at me this year, and this year has been sort of an experiment in a lot of ways. Whereas like the last 2 years from consulting, like my game was strong. My money was money was pouring in. And so there's like reasons to say this year was like a step back or a little different, a little weird, but I just can't deny how much happier I am. So curious what here, what does that bring?
Do you see how as you moved towards vulnerability, you got happier? So as you moved towards a vulnerable Bobby, more real, more authentically you and vulnerable, you got happier. When you say success, you're defining that as monetary success, which I want, I have, I'm excited to have more. That's awesome. I get it. But everybody defines success differently. If you were in that high pressure, money pouring in sales job, but you had chest pains because it was so stressful, right? Or you didn't know what this month is great, that month stinks, whatever sales brings, right? Like, it didn't fill your soul. Mm-hmm. It made you money, but there are other ways to make money. And truly, when I think you're in your soul's purpose and doing what as passionate as you can do both. You just have to get vulnerable. In order to combine those two Bobbies, you have to get vulnerable, real, authentic with who you are. You have to excavate your core values. You have to find out what makes you you. And once I did that excavation, then I said, all right, this is what makes Annie tick. This is what I'm good at. I'm going to lean into my strengths. I know what I'm not good at. Let me surround myself with people that are good at shit that I'm not good at. Because that's what the smartest people do, right? Like, let me just surround myself with people that love like spreadsheets and numbers and they're visionaries. Like, I'm a tactical, get in the dirt, dig, and like grit, and let me help you save your soul kind of person. I'm not like the visionary that's like, let's talk about these 3 corporate clients. And then if we make this, that's not how I work. Mm-hmm. So I have people around me that are
grabbing shovels, digging.
Yeah, right. I'm just but I'm in my soul's purpose. So I get up every morning. Bobby, I can't sleep, but it's not from stress. It's seriously, it is because I am excited to take on the day. I'm up at 5. When you see those posts from me, my clearest time is in the morning, 4:30 to 6:30 in the morning. That's when I write. That's a lot of times when I post. I just see things in this way of just this, like you said, this soul-centered place of fulfillment and passion and purpose. And all I want to do is share this with others, because how much of a waste would that be if I kept this to myself? Like, other people deserve to heal and feel the way that I feel every day.
That's right.
That's how I feel.
No, thank you. Thank you. You just really gave me a thought to follow. The vulnerability piece, vulnerability, I think for me has been such an interesting dynamic. It's been such an interesting, state, because I think from my whole adult life, I've been pretty good at relating to people through failures, or sort of sharing my story, or, I break down walls by sharing first. I'm pretty, that's just sort of my aura. It's just sort of what I do. Even in sales, I'm always like quick to throw down my guard and say, hey, like, it's cool here. Like, we can be cool here.
We're good. You're in a safe space, right?
Yeah. But there's layers to vulnerability. What I've noticed with this work that I do, and where you just sort of made me think of vulnerability, is like, there's a different kind of vulnerability when you start leaning into the things that come naturally, like writing, or trying to define projects or stuff that's just sort of in your head that is keeping you up in the morning or waking you up in the morning. And that's definitely been a little bit harder. I'm not as quick to be like, oh yeah, read this thing that I spent some time on. Like, I definitely am a little more resistant there. Mm-hmm. And I'm also I think it's it's that other piece that it's like, I'm sort of blown away how much I'm excited about it. Like yesterday I spent like 3 hours just diving into like a couple of my mentors, Pressfield, Ryan Holiday. Mentors is they're authors I follow, and just sort of like scoping out, okay, what's like the next iteration of like what I think Student of Intention, particularly the newsletter, is, and like what am I trying to drive towards? And that was just a really enjoyable like R&D session. And I think back to like all the times that I've built sales comp plans, or I've presented to a team, or I've helped win a deal. And those things I enjoyed, partly I think because I was good at them and proficient at them, but not the same level of just sort of nerdy enjoyment that I got from just digging into that stuff. And that's just, I guess maybe that's the vulnerability thing.
Geeking out on personal development is like really cool. So I think it's like an oxymoron. Like geeking out on personal development is cool. Like there's something really cool about digging into who you are and showing up as your best self and modeling the way for your children or for people around you. Like I'm leading a big team now. I need to model the way. I can't just get online and talk. I share my stuff. I share what's going on with my kids. I share what's going on with failures and successes with work. I share about relationships sometimes. I share about friendship and love and, vulnerability. And that's the piece, is just like, I just show me. And the more I show of me, the more people like it. And the more they feel more comfortable showing themselves. And then they're like, wow, I want to go on this journey with you. And I'm like, yes. So
you definitely do. Like I was looking at some of your LinkedIn posts, like it's crazy. You'll get like 800 likes. I'm just like, man, people like Annie getting real over here. Yesterday was just a random post about a rejection that I.
Yeah, that's right. There was a rejection that really set me back in my mind. And I posted about it, and it got 52,000 views in like less than a day. And I only tell you that because like, that's not common.
No, I trust me. I know I'm on LinkedIn all the time.
So I'm like, why is this resonating? And the truth is, it's because I stood up and I said, I failed at this. I was rejected. This is how it made me feel. I was ashamed. I felt down on myself. I thought I was less than. And the people that came to to be there and to say, thank you for sharing this. It made me feel better about myself today. That's why I do what I do. And it's not about the metrics and the likes I just like to get to more people, have more reach, because whoever's going to see my post is who needs to see it. That's how I feel. Whoever's going to see it is who needs to see it. So apparently a lot of people needed to hear about rejection and shame yesterday.
It is pretty crazy. Sometimes you get that sense of like, there's digital wavelengths that everybody's on, where it's like I shared this and or I'll see something from you and I'm like, oh man, I literally had that same thought today.
I needed to see that.
I needed that reflection.
Yeah, I know. And I love, what I will tell you, one struggle that I have, Bobby, is with this success and this busyness coming from work and growing and really just exponentially growing and scaling very quickly, my LinkedIn interaction has gone down a lot. My engagement with others. And that I have to remind myself, it's okay. You're in building mode. People understand. And I get upset because I'm not supporting the people that are so supportive of me. And I have to give myself a little self-compassion and grace during this building time, because I'm not always going to be a startup, no. I'm not always going to be scaling the way that I'm scaling right now. And I have to give myself a little grace, because I was really big on getting back to every comment, because that was genuinely from my heart and soul. And I'm not like, thanks. I wrote it would take hours a day.
Yeah.
And now that the engagement is getting so high, it's impossible. It's just impossible. So, I just have gotten to a point maybe last week where I was like, you got to give yourself a break. Like you can't respond to 1,700 comments. Right?
No,
it's just ridiculous. Like stop. So I just, I worry, and this is my own insecurity. I worry that people will feel dismissed, ignored, not heard. And that's so important to me, for people to be seen and heard and not dismissed, to be understood, and being seen is really big for me. So, I struggle with that. That's probably my biggest struggle recently, is, that just not being able to be, I just don't have the hours in the day. It's just not there, like you need 3-4 hours to respond to thousands of comments, and I just don't have it. So I got to give myself a little grace.
Absolutely. And like, also accept that this is evolving. This is progressing. Like you're still doing those things because your heart's there, right? That's still important to you. You're just going to do them in a different way and at a different scale.
Yeah. It's hard when you put, like, I remember thinking to myself, God, why would someone just like a comment? Like, you take the time, you do the right thing, you write back to the people. And now I'm like kicking myself, like, how dare you judge those people? They're busy. And, I do my, well, look, at the end of the day, we can only do our best. Right. And everybody knows that I come from a genuine place. If they've ever read anything by me, will know that it's authentic. It's just that I can't do it anymore. So that's hard. That's a struggle for me. That's something that I have to like wrap my head around and sort of give myself, have self-compassion.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I want to recognize you did say something really cool before that story. You said it was cool. You said self-discovery is cool. And that was a little light switch for me. That was like, I think one of the big triggers for me going down this journey is in September, I was at a retreat and I met these guys, particularly my buddy Ryan Kearney. And like, he just made the stuff that I sort of saw as pretty goofy. He was our chef. He made all kinds of just tasty vegan food. He was a yogi, like he'd had moved to Bali for, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years. And he just made it cool. You're just like, he would serve us tea. He would serve us tea in the afternoons. And he actually grew up in Pennsylvania, and he was a college basketball player, and just like super athletic looking dude that you're just like, this dude is nerding out on tea, yoga, and like listening.
right. Like, this is what he does for like fun. Like he listens and he expresses himself and he drinks tea. Like, do you think when he was playing college basketball, he was like, I'm going to drink tea? Like, no.
He was drinking beer probably.
So it's when, this is one thing I'll say about my ex-husband and we get along, we're friends, is that like, he always made geeky things cool. That was one cool thing about him. Like he always was able to, when somebody can do that, like your friend, it's really turns things around in your mind where you're like, maybe I just have the wrong perspective. Like maybe that is like reading, some people are like, but like I try to teach my kids, like, reading makes you smart. Reading's really interesting. And you can find stuff to read that really interests you. It's not all boring, like in school. And, like I want them to know to expand your mind, and that's what makes things cool. Reading is cool.
It is cool. And I definitely did not read enough. I can't imagine having the kid thing. I'd probably just be that overbearing, annoying parent that just be like, dude, you got to read, bro. Like,
yeah, my son would be like, yeah, okay. Exactly. He's 11 and a half and he wants to play Fortnite. And he's like, Ma, like, and he's a tween. He's like, enough. Like, I don't feel like, but like, we'll get there. Here's the deal. Ready? If he sees me reading, he will eventually pick up reading because I will model the way for him. When he's ready, he will read.
Got it. Man, I love hanging with you, Annie. Thank you so much for your sharing your story and all that you're doing. I want to ask about one step, and then I want to ask about your partner. I want to ask about the excavate your core value out of the breath framework. That's sort of the most interesting one for me, or actually beginning's the most one. But excavate, I just love that term, and just want to kind of hear. I think I feel like I'm constantly excavating.
Well, you're growing and you're evolving. So It's funny that you say that. This morning when I was talking to my partner, I said, this is my least, because August is E for us. We have groups that we do, and it's E, it's excavate. So I'm like, this is my least favorite. Like, it's like really intense and like just digging into people and digging in. Like, that's what I think about excavation. Like, you're really digging in, and it takes grit, and it takes gaining and learning and growing your self-awareness. And it takes uncovering things. I mean, they all do, all the steps do,
right.
But it's not as like fun to discover what your core, like, you're like, okay, what are my core values? And you keep going back and you can never perfect it. And, you know, it is fun. I don't want to say it's not fun, but excavating to me is like figuring out, I said this earlier, figuring out who you are. What makes Bobby tick? Maybe I didn't say it to you. I said it to a client earlier. What makes Bobby tick? What makes you you? What makes you unique? What is driving you? What's your purpose? What's your mission? These are the things that your core values will tell you. What's the most fulfilled you have ever felt? Close your eyes and describe it to me. And then I can start to pick apart, well, this seems like it matters to you. This seems like it matters to you. And then we sort of like can narrow it down. And like, I discovered that personal freedom is my overarching core value after a lot of excavation. Because when I can be free to be me, which for much of my life I wasn't, both shackled by myself and by others. When I broke free of that, reclaimed my power, and excavated who I really am, I realized that my freedom is everything. It's everything. It's interwoven throughout the fabric of my being to be personally free and whole, and to show up as Annie, as I am, not like what somebody else wants, not what somebody else tells me, not what's imposed on me, but who I really am. So that's excavating to me. It just sort of went off.
No, all good. All good. Yeah, no, it's, how would I describe it? Cause I agree. It's not fun, maybe isn't the word, but it could be an acquired taste. It's kind of like, it's kind of fun. Like for me, the reason it's become fun is because it is so hard, particularly like, I think I'm fascinated with language, and I think excavating and language sort of go hand in hand, where you're sort of trying to find those right words. Define you, right? Like define what you're, and so it's it's a bottomless pit. Like you're never going.
When you're done this process, you're dead. Like I never want to be dead. I never want to be done. You know, like when I'm dead, I'll be done doing this excavation. I'll be done healing. That's the end. So I'm not like, you do this 6-month program and you're healed. Like that's not how it works. You know, it's like this constant evolving and healing and learning. And like you said, that self-discovery never ends. I coach this on a daily basis to multiple people every day. My self-discovery is, I discovered something this morning. Like you're right. It gets more fun. Sometimes it's hard. A lot of times it's hard, but it's fun to learn who you are. Then you know what you love. You know how to love better. You know how to receive love better. Life is just better when you get to know yourself. Everybody thinks that their self-awareness is like, I'm self-aware, everybody. But like this many people are self-aware. Like it's like no one really is.
Well, I think the more self-aware we are, the more we realize we're not self-aware.
Exactly. Good point.
So we've talked a lot about the fun stuff. I guess before I move on to your partner, I do want to know, where are the hangups in yourself, clients? Like where do we get stuck? Where is like really like this process sort of break down a little bit, or what are some of the latest breakdowns you've seen?
There's a couple things. You have to be careful when you scale, when everybody wants a piece of the action because it's the new hot thing, right? You have to be careful not to lose quality. Mm-hmm. So we are really driven to remain quality over quantity, even if this means pausing or tapping the brakes on lots of revenue coming in, because I will not allow anything to take away from the genuineness of what we do and the authenticity in what we do. So that's a work in progress to sort of balance that. The other struggle is when you work with a corporate client, you're often going to get clients that are not rushing to do what you're telling them or asking them or working with them to do. It's not like you calling me one off and saying, Annie, coach me. That's you paying money out of your pocket and you're in it to win it, right? A corporate client
I'm nimble.
is going,
I'm motivated.
going to assign their people. They're going to say, this is what you got to do. I want you to go through this 6-month breath framework program. And some people are going to go, all right. And the struggle is helping them understand the importance of it and how important personal development is. So that's a work in progress too, because that's not somebody who's open, willing, and able all the time. So there's a delicate balance between
You're kind of having to sell them on the process, different people all the time.
Well, that's the beauty of having sales background.
That's right.
I mean, how do you say to somebody, don't you want to be the best version of you that lives a happy, fulfilled whole life, and have somebody go, nah, I'm good. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
We talked about it at the beginning. I mean, you say that's not going to happen, but our choices, most of our choices every day, when I say us, like the greater population, we sort of choose not to be.
That's a really good point.
It's not like we don't always know. It's not like we know that we should eat a little healthier. We know
we should work out a little more. We should be kinder. Yeah, we all know that.
And we just don't.
We just don't. And that's because life gets in the way. And that you just uncovered how you find somebody's B for begin is what are they doing to themselves to give away their power? To how do you find somebody's start place? How do you find out who the person is? And that means that's going to directly affect where we start. So sometimes it takes a couple weeks to get to somebody's B for begin, even sometimes longer. I just had a client for a couple months where we said, you know what? We just uncovered your B. And they were like, after all this time, I mean, I've made progress, but I didn't know we didn't. I'm like, this is your begin. This is your true begin. And they were just mind blown.
And you said, what's holding back your power? Is that?
Yeah. How are you giving it away?
How are you giving it away? I like that.
It's because R is reclaim your power. So we talk a lot about your power barometer and who you're giving your power to. Is it your spouse, your work, your colleagues, your kids, your time management? Things suck you dry of your power all the time. Where are you just willingly giving it? Are you one of those people that comes in late to a meeting and says, I'm sorry? Or do you say, thank you for waiting? It's one little tiny example of reclaiming your power.
That's right.
You know, you don't have to apologize for taking up space.
Or you don't. Beautiful. Well, speaking of time, we're running up on it here. So I want to make sure I get to this piece. So you've just done a beautiful job of walking me through the breath framework, your sort of more grown up startup now. You know, some of the challenges that you went through early on in your story. And what I say with living with intention, I say there's 3 phases. There's action, right? Some of the actions you took, getting your MBA, right? Approaching I think you said it was your father about that business. And, you know, B, you discovered along the way, like in your MBA, like, I'm actually not going to go be this corporate executive. I'm more aware of this path over here, my strengths, my purpose, etc. I say the last phase is alignment. And this is basically the acknowledgement that while our world is dictated much by how we approach it, how we perceive it, like we definitely got to do our part. At the same time, and we do our part, forces, you know, join our aid, whether it's people, whether it's opportunities, whether it's money, whether it's, you know, anything, you know, and I think there's very real examples of this throughout anybody's story. I assume your partner's name is Mike, right?
Mike Panorano. Yeah.
Mike Panorano. I assume he's a form of alignment. But I just want you to share a little bit about that, about your story and where you've sort of like, in doing all the good stuff that you can to push this stuff forward, to be yourself, to be vulnerable, take action. Like, what are some of the things that have sort of dropped in your lap that you're just like, man, somebody's looking out for me?
Yeah. You know, that's a really interesting question. Definitely meeting Mike was a game changer. And we met on LinkedIn online, and he was going through a major struggle in his life. And I was helping him through that. It was like, and as I was helping him, he was helping me. And he was just like, Annie, you know, you got to do this, you got to do this. And nothing was like I was like, great, I got to get paid too, because I got to pay the bills. Okay. So like, let's be real here. I can do all this fun stuff, but like, I got to pay the mortgage.
That's right.
I have 2 kids. So when it came down to it, he was like, we just put our minds together. When we put our minds together, we created this breath framework. Well, once we did that and started sharing it, and all of my engagement and every bit of business and my entire team has come from LinkedIn. That's how powerful that platform is.
Wow.
Every bit.
LinkedIn is digital alignment, straight up.
It is. Talk about being aligned and having people see you. One of my biggest clients that I would say brings in the most ROI of my entire company is not even a first connection. I mean, that's how crazy the reach is, that this person saw me, what I'm doing, and said, I need you to coach me, and then turned around and referred me 5 people. Like, it's crazy how it works. All you need to do, I'm not going to say it's simple, but it's not easy, but there is a simple.
It's simple, not easy.
Right. Is you have to be consistent and you have to be vulnerable. If you have consistency and vulnerability in every day, don't post once a week and be like, why am I not getting any business? Like, that's not how it works. You need to engage. This is part of your job. Part of my job is engaging and being on LinkedIn and creating content so people go, oh, and guess what they're doing? They're going, oh, and that's the genius of it. It works.
That's right.
It's not luck. I didn't get lucky.
No.
So things align because I put the blood, sweat, and tears into it. And Mike did too. And we just created this thing. And look, it's not an overnight success. And I'm not saying that, we don't have our own struggles. It's a work in progress, but it's what I've always wanted. So I have that.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like anything. You can look at it through 2 lenses. So you can look at it through the lens of like, sure, the universe is looking out for you and trying to help, and you kind of have that pessimistic view, or you can have this sort of reasonable, logical view that's like, Annie spends a significant amount of time clarifying for the public internet exactly what she does, how she does it, why she does it, and the people that resonates with are now able to see her.
Thank you.
So it makes sense. It makes sense that they would start to find her.
Yes, you got to show up.
Teammates, partners, etc. Yeah,
it's pretty awesome. And it has not been an easy road. As you said the word arduous earlier, it's true. It's been a rocky road, and it's not straight. It's like this. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurship is not for the no rest for the weary. You know what I mean? Like, you got to have grit, but it's worth it, because I wake up every morning at 5 and I'm like, why can't I sleep? Oh, because I'm so psyched about today. So, I mean, it does pay off if you put work in.
Yeah. No, I think entrepreneurship is sort of like explaining reading to your 11-year-old, where it's like, I want to tell everybody how awesome it is, but I'm just like,
let me just show you.
I'll just do it. And then, like, if you go through it and you feel some of the tension and the hard stuff, like, you'll figure out if that's hard, too hard, or hard enough, or what, like, because it's really sort of unnameable. The like fulfillment piece matched with the challenge piece. It's like, it's kind of different for everybody, and it's not worth describing.
Right.
Or it's just because it's too hard. I don't know. It's too hard.
Right. You got to find that, a Venn diagram. You got to find that centerpiece where you have the challenge, because you need your mind and soul and body challenged, and you have the fulfillment, and they need to overlap. And that's where you find that wholeness, which is the soul center of where I am.
I think we landed this plane, Annie.
We did.
We've got about 6 minutes before you're going to dive into your Instagram. I guess just for the millions of listeners here on Student Intention, let's how can they see more Annie Lieb?
They can find me on LinkedIn, surprisingly, and it's Lieb, Leib, first name Annie. And AnnieLieb.com has everything that we're doing. It's not updated with everybody on the team because it's so new, but there's 3 of us. And you will be able to see more about the breath framework, and just reach out anytime. We are open to talking about it. It's been a crazy, awesome, challenging, and beautiful ride.
Well, thank you for sharing your breath and your truth.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to be here, and you're great. I've been interviewed a lot, and you are a great interviewer. So I will give you that.
Hey, it's Bobby. Thanks for listening to today's show. For more, follow Student of Intention at www.studentofintention.com. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go.